Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be a little bit of a return to form here. It's actually a very ancient build archetype, and I'll be honest, we're just kind of screwing around and trying to have some fun right now. I've been so serious of late talking about like Aberoth kill times, talking about corruption pushing, talking about cycle refreshes, balance of the game. I've been talking about all these different things, and I haven't really, sat down and had some fun in a while. So that's what this build's going to be about. Is we're just going to have some unfiltered raw fun. Now, I would not take this build seriously whatsoever, mainly due to the performance problems that it causes to your computer. As you can see in the background, I did not go through and remove all of the frame rate dips on my end. You guys get to see the full glory of the 5 FPS gameplay just to make sure that, you have all the understanding that this is not a good build whatsoever in that regard. But we're still going to talk about the build anyways because I think it's something funny to showcase. Now, if you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me. Now, let's talk about the build in detail. This is Cold Frostbite Totem Pop Shaman. So the main concept of the build is there are nodes inside Thorn Totem that create an explosion when you either have a totem die, a Thorn Totem die, or when you resummon a Thorn Totem. Now, this actually is a very historical archetype. This has been around for a very long time. I remember playing builds like this like 4 years ago, and they're just as absurd as they are now. Now, there is a quote-unquote meta way of currently playing this, and that's through utilizing Spriggan Form and spamming cast speed and stuff like that, but there's always been another form of this build on the horizon, and that has been, of course, the Idol. So there's an Idol that can roll up to 10% chance to summon a Thorn Totem on hit, and you can get 2 of these, and you can scale a very large amount of absurd hits on Shaman, or just on Primalist in general, and that's through the usage of tornadoes. So every time we cast a tornado, we get 2 tornadoes, and every one of those tornadoes casts a lightning bolt. And those lightning bolts can also trigger multiple times on enemies, thanks to us being a shaman and thanks to the Gathering Storm tree. So we get a very large amount of hits very frequently on single target and on clear. As you can see, whenever we summon Thorn Totems, we're just summoning a bunch of them in a row, and those cold explosions, they apply minion frostbite. And then, of course, we're utilizing items like Serpent's Milk to convert our minion poison chance to minion frostbite chance. Now, all this combined leads to a build that does around like 300k ticks on the dummy right now. I could push it farther. I'm missing like, I think like 400% minion damage percent, and that could push it up to like 600 to 700k maybe if I fine-tuned the build. But this is not a build I would consider worth fine-tuning, as you can see with the gameplay footage. Not only is it absurdly cancer to watch, it's also really annoying to play, as you know, the frame rate drops definitely ruin your quality of life, but it's all worth it in the end just to see that many totems be summoned in a row. I'm actually kind of disappointed in the build a little bit, mainly because they buffed minion frostbite significantly. If you don't know, what they did was they buffed frostbite across the board, and then they nerfed the frostbite boots, but minions were never getting access to the frostbite boots. So, I thought that the buffs to frostbite would make this build a little bit better. You can probably go crit Thorn Totems and probably have a better time. You can easily do that and probably do significantly more damage, but I wanted to do frostbite today. So you can probably take this build archetype and swap it over to minion crit and maybe have a better time. But I thought we would try, of course, minion frostbite today. And I think it's almost there. It needs a little bit more support. I do agree that it's kind of like pigeonholed into the Serpent's Milk shenaniganry. Maybe they can introduce some things to make it not pigeonholed into Serpent's Milk, but who knows? Maybe we'll see some improvements to this build in the future. Like I said, I wouldn't play the Frostbite version of this. If you wanted to be serious about this, I would play the crit version, as the crit version has more scaling vectors than the Frostbite version has. Now, let's talk about the thing that's the most important, in my opinion, is sustaining your mana as a as a tornado build. So tornado has a very large mana cost, and we get around it by utilizing a little niche interaction where you can convert your tornado to fire. Now, this does not change the lightning bolts or the gathering storm procs that come off tornado, so we can freely change tornado as we see fit. And here we change it to fire to benefit not only from a twisted heart, which is keeping us at low life, which I'll explain later, but it also makes it so that we get the minus cost on our wand here, and our wand can hit mana and mana regen. That's why actually we're using this over the scepter, the minus mana cost scepter for fire skills. It's actually better to run the wand because it can hit mana and mana regen on it instead of running, of course, the scepter. That's why we're running the wand. And this allows us to spam as many tornadoes as we want as possible. As you can see in the footage, it just lets us, cast as many as we want for as little mana as we want. We also have like 30 mana regen per second on top of everything else, which all of this combined allows us to, be able to spam tornadoes. And what's really cool is thanks to the fact that we're hitting all these times, as you can see in the footage with all the tornadoes, we can actually build a low life shaman with no ward retention. How are we doing that? That is through double font of the erase. This is not new. If you are old viewers of the channel, you'll know of my addiction to these rings. Essentially what they do is for every missing mana you have, every 10 missing mana, you get one ward on hit up to your maximum HP value as long as it's missing. And we can do that through sources like Twisted Heart. Twisted Heart sacrifices our life, which means, we're losing life, and we want to be losing said life. The main reason why is because we can utilize the 16% less, I think it's 20%. Yeah, 20% less damage taken at the top of Primalist tree, and that allows us to face tank most things in the game. It's unironic that we end up being insanely tanky. We may only deal like 300k ticks on the dummy, but we can face tank bosses with ease because of all of this extra sustain that we have, and we could push this even further if we really wanted to. We could run like the Aberoth chest piece, the 20% less damage taken, if we over invest into resistance, which is very easy to do as a shaman, mind you. So there are avenues to improve this build, but I'm not going to do them right now because it's just not worth it with the current state of the game, with how laggy it is to play said build. It's kind of sad, but it's just how it be. Well, with all that being said, let's go in game and talk about the build more in detail, shall we? All right, here we are in game with the character. Let's talk about the skills, shall we? So we have Thorn Totem here. Mainly, we just want the maximum 5 Thorn Totems, 6 Thorn Totems, which we get -1 thanks to Grove Mine. But this makes it so we always summon 5 Thorn Totems every single time we summon a Thorn Totem, which makes it so that when we use a Thorn Totem idols, they always summon them, and then of course cause the explosions, which is great. We also grab the more damage here. This applies to our Frostbite. It does reduce cast speed of the totems, but it doesn't matter because we're not actually doing damage with the cast speed of the totems. We're doing damage with the explosions, which is why, we don't really care about that. So getting the 72% more damage for our Frostbite's great. Then we're grabbing a little bit of Poison Chance, a little bit of Frostbite duration, and of course we're grabbing Rotten Core to cause the explosions. We are converting it to cold with Pills of Heorot, which converts Poison Chance for Thorn Totems into Frostbite Chance, which makes this a massive 200% from Serpent's Milk into Frostbite Chance. As you can see, lots of free Frostbite Chance. Now, that's pretty much it for Thorn Totem. I do have a +3 to Thorn Totem currently. That's on our helmet here. Eventually, you can go even further and get even more plus levels, 20% more damage here specifically, but that would require a very large investment to get to that point. That's pretty much it for Thorn Totems. For Tornado here, Tornado, you just care about the Gathering Storm procs, you care about the duration, so you have more tornadoes, care about the double cast chance, you get 2 tornadoes per cast, which means 2 procs of the Gathering Storm procs, which is great. We're grabbing Fire Tornado, and it's more of a controversial pick. I'm grabbing stationary tornadoes. You don't actually need stationary tornadoes. You could actually invest in some cast speed and stuff like that. The main reason I invest into stationary tornadoes is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but fire tornadoes are eye cancer, absolute eye cancer. And when you're in a boss fight, I'll be honest with you, you really don't want to fucking see tornadoes going all over the place, which is why I've gone ahead and made stationary tornadoes, because if they were all moving around in a boss fight, it makes it very hard to actually be able to see said boss fight. So, I go with stationary. You can go with it. You don't need to go with stationary if you want, but the only thing you could do is like add some cast speed. Right now, the range is bugged and giving you significantly more range than you could possibly ever ask for. So, I'm not using the range right now. So, cast speed, maybe go into storm orbs. Although storm orbs, for some reason, they have a less chance to cast the 10% chance on Thorn Totem. I think they have like a bug where they're having like less of a chance to apply storm orbs. I have no idea why, but it's actually something that we learned a while back playing a different build. I have no idea why we're not proccing as many Thorn Totems from these, because it would be a huge upgrade in damage, but for some reason it is reducing the amount. Now, if you could get like a gabillion plus levels, maybe you can go storm orbs, but the problem is you want storm orbs and the stationary tornado, because stationary means, you can put it on the boss and have the storm orbs hit, but you can't do that if you're not doing that. So it's just very, very hard to like make everything work. You could take out the minus mana cost, but then you have mana problems, and there's like 20 different other problems caused by trying to go for storm orbs. So right now we're just going with this tornado setup. Warcry is literally just for the pull on Warcry, being able to pull enemies in, because Thorn Totems only ever summon around you when you have the Thorn Totem idle. So being able to pull enemies into the AoE of the Thorn Totems is great. That's pretty much why we're running Warcry. We're running Spriggan Form literally only for the 10% chance to get a Thorn Shield whenever we get hit, and that allows us to scale more armor so we can face tank more things. The biggest problem with the build like this is since we're kind of just sitting here casting tornadoes and stuff like that, it's very hard to see the screen, especially with all the lag. So I have to overinvest into defenses so that, I don't feel like as I'm going to die half the time. So having all this extra armor while clearing, it feels good, and it allows us to get to this frostbite chance on the tree. We also get a little bit extra frostbite chance from this as well. That's pretty much it for the skills. Let's talk about the passives that are important. So for passives, mainly, this is the main reason why we're going low life, is for the 20% less damage taken. This just gives us extra effect of our life, which makes us feel a lot better for being a 3K. Right now, I'm actually not dual wielding. This actually, you can take this out and go with probably just some minion damage here or something like that. You don't need this dual wield node. I was testing some dual wield configurations earlier, hence why it's still there. Beastmaster, just taking 16% less damage from nearby enemies, and then taking 2 points of aspect of the boar as a 2-second cooldown, is very good when like Oribus is like smacking you like the little bitch you are. So you definitely want the less damage taken from aspect of the boar from melee attacks, as you're kind of just going to be sitting there face tanking things all the time. Then for Druid here, like I said, minion frostbite, chance to summon thorn shields on you. And then for Shaman, just getting the minion frostbite chance, gas speed, percent damage. We're lacking percent damage, so we want as much as possible. Getting this attunement buff to get all the extra mana regen for stacking attunement, which I don't have much of, but that's just because my gear is garbage, I'll be honest. Then, of course, eventually the 8% less damage taken from shocked enemies. Eventually, you do need some way of applying said shock. I don't really have that right now because we're converting to cold. You should actually uninvest out of this and apply shock. Oh my goodness, I'm so stupid. But yeah, yeah, we all make mistakes, and all the attack and cast speed, then eventually the extra life if we can manage to shove it in. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that. I felt I was super tanky, so I actually took out a lot of HP, as you noticed, and I still feel pretty tanky, all things considered. So hopefully we can find a way to make this build do a little bit more damage, because it is a little ZDPS. Now let's talk about the blessings, shall we? So for blessings, Void Res, as always, helps us cap our resistances. I think here mana is fine because it gives us more ward on hit. Crit Avoid, of course, so we can cap our Crit Avoid. Then armor, and then armor, as always, as it always is. Then for Gearing, mainly right now I'm just using a Cinder Song with just mana regen. You can get Cold Pen for minions on this. That would be very strong. I just didn't feel like re-slamming it because, like, you know, this build's not worth it. Surf and Spell Convention, you'd want like T7 minion damage on it. I only have mana regen on it. I just didn't feel like re-slamming it because, like I said, this build's not worth it. Boots here, just the same Matera's Path I've been using over the past few builds. You just slam like a 2 LP one, get some movement speed and HP, and all of a sudden, every single build you play has significantly more HP. Twisted Heart, I just have cast speed on it. You don't actually need cast speed with this build. You can go with a different relic, different Twisted Heart with different stats, probably minion damage, that'd be better. But I didn't feel like slamming a bunch of 1 LP Titan Hearts just to make this build a little bit better. And double Font of the Erase, I just have attunement on one of them. Eventually you'd want minion damage and attunement, and same thing with the other one, and minion damage and attunement, but I didn't feel like cracking a billion Font of the Erase just to upgrade this build. And then of course, the most mandatory item for the build is the Thorn Totem on hit. Specifically, being able to, you know, make Thorn Totems on hit. You want the 10% chance, so you can spawn as many as possible. Then for the chest here, we do have a plus to the tornado so that we can get access to all of the stuff on the tree so that we can get everything we want. Now, of course, you don't need this if you don't go with stationary tornadoes, but like, dude, like stationary tornadoes are the best. So I would suggest not going for not stationary. You will regret it the moment you take it out. So yeah, I'd heavily suggest going for +3 to tornado here. Maybe some minion damage percent on your chest. This chest is garbage, let's be real. We can get way better here if we actually cared about it. For a catalyst, we're just running something with T7 minion damage and minion damage percentage on the prefix. That's all we care about, really. Just trying to get as much percent minion damage as possible. Here you'd want minion damage percent. I fucked up on the prefix here. Eventually you'd want minion damage on that prefix. As you can see, we're missing a lot of percent damage right now. That's kind of why I'm like, you know, I could improve the build significantly, but it's just not worth it, man. It's fun and all. You could push the damage to be respectable and all that, but with the amount of lag that this build causes, it's not worth playing more than a novelty currently. Maybe one day when performance gets better, you can play this build way more seriously than I'm taking it right now. Now, that's going to be it for gearing today. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else. Bye.